Hello and welcome to another Magic 2015 gameplay. Today we're looking at a black, green and white or junk reanimator deck. It's basically a deck that tries to abuse the graveyard in as many ways as possible. And to fuel the graveyard we have Necromancer's Assistant and Satyr Wayfinder. These are basically there to put as many creatures in the graveyard as possible. Satyr Wayfinder also happens to fix our mana base as we are a 3-color deck. And once we have a lot of creatures in the graveyard, we can abuse it by playing Seance, which will trigger all those ETB effects of the creatures we have. And to permanently get back creatures, we can cast Rescue from the Underworld, which also happens to trigger ETB effects again. And finally we also have Spider Spawning, which profits from having creatures in the graveyard, also has Flashback, so if we happen to put it in the graveyard with Wayfinder or Assistant, we can still flash it back. And I guess we also have Nemesis of Mortals, which becomes cheaper the more creatures are in the graveyard. So we want to have a lot of creatures in the deck, so this limits the amount of non-creature spells we want to play. We only have Spider Spawning, Seance and Rescue from the Underworld as non-creature spells, which doesn't leave room for removal. We only have Shadowborn Demon as a targeted removal spell. And we basically rely on our heavy synergies, ways to gain life and ways to go over the top to win the game. So let's go over the remaining cards. We have one Baneslayer Angel, which besides Seance is our only white card, but it's a very powerful one. There's also a lot of demons in the format. Then we have Shadowborn Demon, which I already discussed, our only real removal spell, but we do have a way, another way to find him. And that's with a Runescar Demon, which can find any card in our deck. So it can find a missing combo piece, it can find a way to gain life, it can find another finisher. Then we have a Gristlebrand, which we can even realistically cast in this deck. And it's a great target for Rescue from the Underworld, of course. And then we have Elvish Visionary, which is very good in the early game. It's a great target for Seance, as it draws us a card when it enters the battlefield. Then we also have Vengevine, which is just a good value creature to have in a graveyard, as you can get it back for free basically. And then Ceruli Gatekeepers is a very important addition in the deck. We are a 3-color deck, we're running 12 gates, so it's very easy to have 2 of them in play, and it gains us 7 life, so it's good to stall a little bit in the early game, and once we get it back with something like Seance, we gain another 7 life, so it's the glue that holds the deck together and allows us to do the things we can do. And then we also have a Soul of Zendikar, which also has a relevant ability when it's in the graveyard and is a good spell with reach, so I'm happy to have it. And our mana base is 12 gates and then 6 forests, 4 swamps and 4 plains. Okay, let's see our opening hand. It looks alright. Would have been nice to have a Satyr Wayfinder, but I guess this will do. We have all 3 colors and a decent curve if we draw some lands. Let's start with a Guildgate, of course. And we're a little weak to early aggression with this draw. This can be prevented if we draw a Gatekeeper and another gate, but looks like we're playing against green, and here we can simply play our second gate, and if we draw a Gatekeeper we'll gain 7 life if we play it. And next turn we can play the Assistant, which will hopefully reveal a few creatures we can get back with a Seance to gain us some value. And there's a Spider Spawning, which is good. But for now, let's play the Assistant. And it reveals a Spider Spawning, a Rescue and a Gate. So not great. We would have liked to see some creatures, but I guess Spider Spawning is not the worst card to reveal. Although we still need creatures, because Spider Spawning without creatures does literally nothing. And there's a Gladeheart, which shows us that our opponent's playing a sort of defensive start, which means he will probably have a good late game. Here we can play Seance, but I'm actually gonna attack first, because if our opponent does block, we can get the assistant back next turn on our opponent's upkeep. And I would actually like to get our assistant back with Seance to fuel the graveyard, but looks like our opponent's just gonna take 3 damage and we'll just play the Seance. I guess we could have left our assistant back to block, as we don't really have early defense. But I thought our opponent would have blocked here. Alright, 3 mana, 4 mana, gains 2 life, and for 4 mana I guess he could play Nylea's Disciple. Ordeal of Heliod, interesting, so he might be on a life gain deck of sorts, which also makes sense why he didn't block. And it's gonna get in there for 3 damage, and if we do draw a land we can kill it with Shadowborn Demon, and there we go. Yep, that's the only play that actually makes sense here, because we don't have any creatures here, so Spider Spawning does nothing, and Rescue also does nothing. And seems like a good play here. We can sacrifice the assistant to the demon, and then get the assistant back with Seance to get another trigger going. So I actually don't mind sacrificing the assistant at all. Alright, opponent at 16. And we basically got a 2-for-1 there. Now, 5th land. Important to note, he doesn't have triple green, so Arbor Colossus is not a concern yet. Arrest is gonna be a problem. But I wonder... yeah, it's still gonna trigger. So we could sacrifice the demon, as it does basically nothing now, except for sacrificing our own creatures, but I actually like getting rid of the assistant. And here we could play Spider Spawning for 1, but Rescue from the Underworld is actually a nice play at this point, because we can get rid of the arrest under the demon by exiling our demon, getting back the assistant. But we can wait until our opponent's turn to do that, because this is an instant, and we would like to have a target for the demon. So let's just pass a turn. Now with Seance we don't have to exile, or exile the assistant to put it back into play. And we will not do that at this point, because we want to rescue it. And if we don't have a target in the graveyard, we can't play Rescue from the Underworld. So hopefully our opponent just plays a big creature that we can kill with our Shadowborn Demon. And that's exactly what we wanted to see here. And let's make sure to pause and play Rescue, exiling the Necromancer's Assistant temporarily, and selecting Shadowborn Demon. And on our upkeep they both will return. Seance, we will not target anyone, because they will get back as creatures and we don't want to exile them if we don't have to. And here we can destroy the Palisade Giant with our Shadowborn Demon. And get rid of the arrest is also important. And still no... Alright, so we milled a Nemesis of Mortals and a Ceruli Gatekeepers with our assistant, which is good. This means Spider Spawning becomes a decent play at this point, and also means our Seance finally has a target. And I think we will flash back this Spider Spawning, as we have another one in hand, but it's better to make use of all our mana this turn. get 2 spiders in play, and pass a turn. And here we can get rid of our gatekeepers to gain 7 life. We only get him until end of turn, so Seance is just good for getting some value. It's not good for actually reanimating creatures and attacking with them, because they will have summoning sickness. But since we built our deck to have our creatures with enter the battlefield effects, we can gain full value out of Seance. Another Palisade Giant, and Seance. We could get back the Nemesis of Mortals, but we can't attack with it, so let's not exile it. And let's see here. We have to sacrifice a creature. Let's get rid of the Assistant, I guess. We still have enough power to get through the Palisade Giant, which absorbs all damage basically. And we're getting pretty close to casting Gristlebrand. We can cast it next turn actually. But let's attack here. And these spiders are also good targets for the Shadowborn Demon. And this should kill the Palisade Giant. And let's see, is it worth casting the second spider spawning? I guess so. We don't have anything better to do, and next turn we're casting Gristlebrand anyways. Okay, and I think we want to exile the Assistant now, so we get some more creatures into the graveyard. And that's gonna trigger now. Let's see what we got. We got a Runescar Demon and a Elvish Visionary, so 2 great creatures. And their opponent using a Reprisal here to get rid of our Shadowborn Demon, but it doesn't know we have a Gristlebrand in hand, which is gonna be a lot better for us than a Shadowborn Demon. And let's, I guess, we could get the Runescar Demon to find any card we want, but I actually want to get the Elvish Visionary just to draw a card, because if we do happen to find a Rescue from the Underworld, we can get the demon back into play. Instead we drew our second demon, but I'm simply gonna play out Gristlebrand here, which is gonna finish the game in short order. Let's attack with our spiders. Let's attack with all. There's one card we should play around, and that's Planar Cleansing, which could wipe the board. But we still have Gristlebrand as backup to fuel our hand again, and here we could get something back, but I'm not gonna do it. And let's see if our opponent can get out of it. A Gristlebrand is pretty hard to beat. There's a reason why people play him in Eternal formats. And we could draw cards here, but there's no real need to. And I'm not gonna get the demon back just yet. Instead, I'm just gonna cast our second demon and look for probably a Rescue from the Underworld. We could get back Baneslayer, but if we get back Rescue from the Underworld, we get to trigger the demon that's in play, and we get to get back the second demon in our graveyard, so we get to look for the Baneslayer Angel with those triggers. So, not that we're gonna lose, but we're still trying to make the plays with the most value attached to them, because that's what Magic's all about. Opponent down to 3 life. And still no need to activate our Griselbrand. And still no need to use Seance. And our opponent's Griffin is looking pretty small compared to our demons. And our opponent decided to leave. Didn't really accomplish his defensive plan here with Palisade Giant and Arrest. And a Marked by Honor plus a Spire Tracer is not gonna stand up to the might of Griselbrand. Pretty cool card. Yeah, no. We had a plan, and that plan is to rescue from the underworld our demon. But our opponent's actually dead here, because we have 2 big flyers and our opponent only has 1 of them. Alright. And that's gonna finish the game. I wanna thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed. And as always, have a nice day.